don't mean to harp on this too much, but we have to follow the rules. Thanks all.
Oh, okay. I was just curious whether I was going to be here or not. That was my biggest thing. He's just different. You want to take that later? Yeah. Never seen Mark? No. But that's how everybody. No, we don't worry about that.
I guess you're right.
I now call this meeting of the Kansas State University Student Governing Association Student Senate to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to begin our Student Senate meeting taking place on Thursday, October 14th, 2021 with a land acknowledgement. We recognize that Kansas State University, as the first land-grant institution, stands on the ancestral lands of the Kaw people. Our state of Kansas is home to 4 federally recognized Native nations: the Iowa, Kickapoo, Prairie Band Potawatomi, and Sac and Fox. We must remember that the land serving as the foundation for this institution was and still is stolen land acquired by white settlers. We pledge our commitment to creating decolonized spaces at the university while advocating for the support and future success of Indigenous faculty, staff, and students at K-State. And with that, we'll move into first roll call.
Thanks, Blake, and good evening, everybody. Bain.
Here.
Bellamy.
Here.
Binkley.
Here.
Booz.
Here.
Brummett. Kahlo. Carr.
Here.
Chappas. Compton.
Here.
Croslow.
Here.
Cunningham. DeMott.
Here.
Dock.
Here.
Encero.
Here.
Esslinger.
Here.
Fields.
Here.
Gann.
Here.
Glasscock.
Here.
Jambunathan.
Here.
Kramer.
Here.
Lister. Long.
Here.
Mayer.
Here.
McPhee.
Here.
Midaw.
Here.
Nelson.
Here.
Pineda Gomez.
Here.
Porter.
Here.
Rester.
Here.
Riffle.
Here.
Rook. Salmon.
Here.
Scharnhorst.
Here.
Shear. Spleakle.
Here.
Stout.
Here.
Thomas.
Here.
Volgamore.
Here.
Wallace. Warren.
Yeah. Here.
Willis. Jackson.
Here.
And Willis Reese.
Here.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We have 33 senators present.
All right. With that, we'll now move into first open period. Are there any speakers tonight for first open period? Seeing none, we'll move into approval of the minutes. The minutes were distributed along with the agenda and legislation tracking information on Tuesday. Are there any questions or corrections for the minutes? Seeing none, I will now seek a motion to approve the minutes. Senator Porter.
I move to approve the minutes. Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Are there any objections? Seeing none, the minutes will stand approved. We'll now move into our announcements for the week. So first, we have our COVID-19 information at the top. Please consider getting vaccinated if you have not. We currently have an opening for the position of Senate Operations Chair in Student Senate. If you're interested in our governing documents, elections, or the day-to-day operations of Student Senate, please consider applying for this position. Applications will be due a week from today at 11:59 and then interviews for the position will occur on October 24th on Sunday. If you have any questions, please contact me, and applications can be found at that link. Senator Booz.
And to be clear, can you state what restrictions, if any, there are who can apply? Because it's more than just student senators.
Yeah, anyone is welcome to apply. Any student on campus is welcome to apply there. Third, Cats for Cans will be happening at the game this weekend, so please consider dropping off some canned goods to help out for the Flint Hills breadbasket. Fourth, our legislative advocates application has just opened up. If you're interested, please reach out to Logan Cohn and apply at the link below. Proxies for this week, we have Bellamy for Lynn, Kahlo for Marquez, Gann for Holland, Binkley for Fuss, Kramer for Shear, Compton for Blood, Stout for Coke, Porter for Richenberg, Salmon for Barron, Insero for Kidd, Volgamore for Hotzel, Jambunathan for Dunlap, and Scharnhorst for Bannister. We have our Zoom request form there as well as our Senate shoutouts. And our SGA member of the week this week is Senator Gus Scharnhorst. Gus has been working extremely hard this year and has already written multiple pieces of legislation. He's attended multiple committees outside of his normal committee and has dedicated so much time to our students. Thank you for your dedication so far in your first year, Gus. If we get a round of applause. You can see our upcoming events at the calendar below. And then our quote of the week this week is, "We have the ability to affect more change in a day in the White House than we will have in a lifetime once we walk out these doors." And that's by Leo McGarry, if you're familiar with the West Wing. White House being Student Senate in this case. So anyway, with that, we'll now move into commendations for today. Is there a motion on Resolution 27? Senator Porter.
I move to consider Resolution 27.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to consider Resolution 27. Will the author please come forward?
Yeah. Sorry, folks. Resolution 21, 22, 27, commendation to Monty Putnam for becoming a Kansas State University fan. By Cameron Coder and Ali DeMott, sponsored by Maggie Bowman, Mackenzie Burney, Ali DeMott, Michael Dowd, Jordan Ebert, Adam Fisher, Kelsey Fodovich, Cody Hanna, Chris Lowry, Meadow Martis, Aaron Rose May, Maya Munz, Noah Oshner, Lauren Petrie, Blake Phillips, Daniel Reiki, Luke Shipper, Madison Showman, Bennett Shipley, Cole Schreier, and Taylor Wolf. Whereas in early August 2021, amidst uncertain futures for the Big 12 Conference, Monty Putnam, Mr. Putnam, a lifelong South Carolina fan, announced he would follow Kansas State University sports this year. Whereas Mr. Putnam decided to be a Kansas State fan because of the kind nature of our fans that interacted with him on Twitter. Specifically from Kansas State Twitter superfan Ozzy Everyman a Wildcat. Whereas since announcing he would follow Kansas State, Mr. Putnam has immersed himself in becoming a fan of our institution. Whereas Mr. Putnam began wearing Kansas State clothing, promoting Kansas State in South Carolina, and will be attending his first Kansas State University game Saturday, October 16th, 2021. And whereas with the turmoil the Big 12 was facing, Mr. Putnam's support of Kansas State from 16 hours away was greatly supported. Be it resolved that the Kansas State University Student Governing Association commends Monty Putnam for his support. Hope he continues his Kansas State fandom. Section 2, upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the Student Body President, a copy of this resolution shall be sent to Kansas State University Athletic Director Gene Taylor, Kansas State University Head Football Coach Chris Kleiman, Kansas State University President Richard B. Myers, University of South Carolina Athletics Director Ray Tanner, University of South Carolina Football Coach Shane Beamer, University of South Carolina President Harris Pastridia, and distinguished South Carolina and Kansas State University fan, Monty Putnam.
Are there any questions or corrections for the author? Chair Long.
Forgive my ignorance. Who is this man?
Yes. Monty Putnam, long story short, was a fan of South Carolina that was making fun of the Big 12, and a lot of Kansas State fans came after him. In those interactions, he decided to follow along with K-State this year. And it really became a cool story on social media where the banter between the fan bases turned into him becoming a fan. A lot of people from the K-State community reached out to him, gave him shirts, cups, ultimately gave him tickets to the Iowa State game this weekend, and push came to shove. He's on his way to Manhattan right now.
Yes, he's been updating on the trip. He's currently in Missouri, so.
I do have a friendly amendment to myself.
Yeah,
I listed Ali DeMott as a author and sponsor.
technically that is allowed.
Yeah.
Okay?
Chair Solomon.
Is the Everyman a Wildcat spelled correctly? I just want to make sure. It is.
Yeah.
I assumed it was fine, but I guess like, cool.
Yeah, gotta love Twitter handles.
Yeah.
Senator Booz.
I didn't think of this until now, but should we send a copy to Everyman and Wildcat as well?
Yeah, I'd be okay with that.
Maybe just an electronic one if we can't get his actual address.
Nate?
All right, got that change taken down. Senator Insero.
I know this is football related, but Frank Martin coached here and coached there, and coaches there. Maybe we could send it to him too.
I'm a fan of Frank. If we send it to Frank, do we send it to Bruce as well? Sure.
Senator Glasscock.
Given that this interaction, this form of interaction, I assume happened on Twitter, should we consider sending this as well to Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey?
Certainly. Nick is sweating bullets.
Senator Booz.
Okay, well, if we're sending this to Jack Dorsey, then we need to make sure it's grammatically correct. No, on line 12, we missed adding commas after the parentheses and after fan. And then, let's see, I think there was, no, I think that was most of it, but I don't know, I might come up with something later and talk to you.
Gotcha, thank you. Are there any further questions or corrections for Resolution 27? Seeing none, I will now seek a motion on Resolution 27. Senator Glasscock.
I move to approve Resolution 27 unanimous.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to consider or to approve Resolution 27 unanimously. Are there any objections? Seeing none, Resolution 27 will stand approved. All right, we'll now move into approval of appointments for the night. Is there a motion on Resolution 28? Oh, Senator Bain.
I move to consider resolution 28.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to consider Resolution 28. With that, will the author please come forward? That'll be me tonight, folks. All right, and really quick, I do have a friendly amendment to this as well. So line 10, instead, striking everything to 2021 and replacing with the list of all eligible and willing candidates from the election has been exhausted. And then on line 11, striking that as well and replacing it with, whereas Kyle Fields was nominated by the Graduate Student Council in its capacity as the college counsel to fill the vacancy, just to better reflect what the actual process was there. All right, so Resolution 21, 22, 28, approval of new student senators. Whereas there is currently one vacancy for the position of student senator for the graduate school and, well, actually pretend that I just read all of that. Sorry. Be it resolved that Section 1, the following individuals be approved as student senator for the graduate school, Kyle Fields.
Alrighty, thank you so much, Blake. Are there any questions or corrections for the author? Fantastic. Can I get a motion to approve that unanimously? Senator Scharnhorst.
I move to approve Resolution 28 unanimously. Second.
It has been moved. Are there any objections? I didn't think so. Seeing none, Resolution 28 will stand approved. Kyle, if you want to come down front, we can get you sworn in. There we go. Grab the running mic. All right. So if you'll go ahead and raise your right hand and say, "I will" at the end. I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of Student Senator and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the Kansas State University Student Governing Association.
I will.
Awesome. If you want to introduce yourself, name, pronouns, major, hometown, favorite smell.
Okay, my name is Kyle Fields. I'm in the Sociology PhD program, originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, so just arrived here. Favorite smell? I have no idea. Oranges? I like oranges.
Thank you very much. All right. We will now move into committee reports for the night. Are there any committee chairs who would like to make a report? Seeing none, I will now seek any directors who would like to make a report tonight. Chief of Staff Billman.
All right, sorry, the three of us forgot to talk about who was going to give the report tonight, so I'm going to wing it. Not a super ton going on this week that I have to report you on. Let's think. From Michael's front, there was a special KBOR meeting last Friday regarding Big 12 school, or not Big 12, KBOR schools, making recommendations to their universities regarding sexual violence on campuses. TFSC met this week, which is good. They're going over College of Business stuff. On Sunday, we met with the Student Athlete Advisory Council to discuss our relationships with student athletes and how to better advocate for them. Let's see. Oh, we met with Town Gown on Friday. We discussed link scooters. We discussed, oh shoot, what else? Let me look at my notes. We discussed a possible avenue for our campus crates idea to be put forward. I mean, just basic Town Gown stuff. If you have specific questions, come talk to me after. Some things that I've been up to this week. If you noticed, KSU Night was on Tuesday. Thank you so much to everyone who attended that. Really great speakers. We're probably going to crank out a commendation to those speakers sometime soon. If you notice, the attendance was down a bit at KSU Night. That is because of an agreement. I'm going to maybe get a little spicy here for a sec, so I do apologize. But apparently there was some sort of agreement made between the provost and Dr. Brian Samuel before he left that classes would not be canceled last year and this year for KSU Night due to the hybridized format, which I personally think is a joke and a disgrace to the event. But I was assured that class cancellation would reoccur next year. So I do encourage us to maybe start thinking about ways that we can ensure that that happens next year. Another thing that you'll see coming up in introduction of legislation, you'll see a resolution regarding sexual violence on campus. That is just in response to the protest that happened a couple of weeks ago. I was like sort of the spearhead on that. Myself and Gus worked together quite a bit on it. He's going to present it. So I've done like a lot of the, I don't mean to say this to like give myself credit in any way, but I've done a lot of the behind the scenes work. So if you have specific questions about it or need anything like changed on it, please do come to me. There was a huge committee of people. You'll see all their names listed on it. So big props to them. I'll stand for questions as well.
Are there any questions for Chief of Staff Billman?
All right, Sig, thank you so much.
Thank you, Maggie. Are there any further directors tonight who would like to give a report? President Dowd.
This is always the most awkward part after speaking after Maggie. Yeah, but first and foremost, like Maggie did a great job. She covered all of the really key talking points. And the only reason why I'm really coming up here is to inform the body of a couple of things just coming up. As mentioned, we had really, really great information from the Kansas Board of Regents, or KBOR, Student Advisory Committee, or SAC. and also from International Town Gown Association at ITGA. Also, Student Athlete Advisory Committee, as Maggie mentioned. So Cats for Cans is going to be a main focus for this week at game day. So be sure to bring some cans and donate for that. Really, really awesome discussion around NCAA diversity. They're also starting a social justice action committee through student athletes. So awesome work on that regard. And just generally amazed at the philanthropic effort that our student athletes have. I mean, they literally put themselves out there all the time for the university, and they do so much work outside of that to help make K-State a better place. So if you see a student athlete, tell them thank you for all the work that they do. Also, the only other thing, so I got two other things, so COVID and then insufficient funds. So COVID, we had an update. So as you all are likely aware, we have COVID executive leadership meetings, which take place every Monday and Thursday, and that is comprised of the majority of high-level admin, plus myself, Cameron, Maggie, and John Martin from K-State Salina. So on that, we learned that there were 16 students in quarantine and isolation and one individual in housing and dining of that. So again, incredibly low numbers, really, really great outlook when it looks at when we look at the university as a whole. Continuing forward, I think there's going to continue to be a discussion around Riley County versus the campus as a whole. I mean, our vaccination rates are at about 66% for students. Again, if you haven't gotten vaccinated, please consider doing so if you're able. And for faculty, we're at about 80%. And so definitely a different situation when we compare that to Riley County, which is at about 38, 39% vaccinated. I might be off on those numbers just a little bit. So continuing to have more discussions and conversations about how we view policy moving forward, just because our situation is different in a lot of ways. So if you have any talking points or feedback on that, I would be happy to listen. So feel free to shoot me a text or an email or just stop me after tonight's meeting. So last part, insufficient funds. We've got a big task ahead of us. We've got about $1 million worth of callbacks, which Max, Blake, and myself will be going through on Sunday. That's a very daunting task, and I don't want to, by any means, undermine the gravity for which that comes. We know for a fact that there will be certain positions, some of which will be made up of students, that will be cut. I don't say that lightly. I say that with a very, very heavy heart, because I know friends who will likely be cut from their jobs because that entity will no longer be able to pay for them. And that genuinely sucks, and I hate it more than anything else in the world. But I also do not want to undermine the fact that this is by far one of the largest responsibilities ever placed on students. And we cannot, by any means, underestimate how incredible it is that we as students get to make our decisions that affect our college experience, and that we have total control for the most part in making that decision. And yes, it is hard, and yes, it is heavy, and yes, it's not going to come lightly, but wow, like in the grand scheme of things, this is unheard of. And this is a very, very special opportunity for us to really show the fact that we're up for the challenge, that we are responsible in handling such a large budget, and that we're capable of doing so with a level head that looks at the long term. And so again, if there are any questions, any concerns, please, please, please reach out to Max, Blake, and myself, and we'd be happy to chat. Just gearing up and moving forward, want all of us to be on the same page that this really, really is something that is quite special and unique to Kansas State University in our shared governance model. And we want to make sure that students are being put first, and this is a really big responsibility. And in doing so, we believe that we're able to make the right decisions moving forward. So I stand for questions.
Are there any questions for President Dowd? Seeing none, thank you for your report, Michael. Are there any further directors who would like to give a report? Intern Coordinator Arnold.
All right, friends. Well, start off the report. We're going to start with swearing in a couple of interns here that weren't able to make it to the last one. So real quick. I'm going to read Mr. Henry and Miss Edma the oath of office, and they'll introduce themselves. So when I'm done, just say I do. I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of student government intern, and I will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the Kansas State University Student Governing Association. Excellent. Name, pronouns, major, hometown. I think I said hometown twice, and favorite smell.
Hi, I'm Edma Landa. I'm from Liberal, Kansas. My pronouns are she, her, and my major is psychology. Rain?
Hi, my name's Henry Shart. I'm from Hastings, Nebraska. My major is CNS, and my favorite smell is probably citrus.
Okay, smile.
We can get one more round of applause while they take the picture.
All right, and then other updates on intern stuff. First meeting of phase 2 was today, so that was pretty neat. And then class 2 met for the first time today, so that's also pretty neat. But also it's not too late to keep recommending us names for the intern program. So if you come across anybody who's interested, just send their name our way. And I stand for questions.
Are there any questions for intern coordinator Arnold? Chair Salmon.
How many individuals were in the phase 1? Like the individuals that met today who are new?
I'm going to defer that to Ashley. Hey, Ashley.
What?
How many people are in class 2 today?
6.
Okay.
So, they all have a lot of potential, great quality, but we would love more people if you guys have any friends.
Cool. Awesome. Are there any further questions for Coordinator Arnold? Senator Scharnhorst.
So I don't know that much about the intern program despite being a mentor. Can you explain what the difference between like phase and class and numbers?
Yeah, certainly. So phase 1 is like the introductory phase to SGA. So that is running through informational sessions around the 3 branches of SGA plus 2 other general information type sessions. And then phase 2 is a little bit more hands-on type learning within SGA. So today we did a little bit of a mock Senate and legislation writing workshop. Shout out Senate exec for making me do that one. Yeah, and then so class 1 is the class that starts at the very beginning of the semester. Class 2 starts now, and then we'll have a class 3 that starts at the beginning of next semester.
Ooh, Coordinator Grills.
I'm just not going to walk up there. It's not a question. But if you are a mentor, be sure you've reached out to your mentee because we're about to send a message in the group me to see who did and who didn't. So cover your faces right now. Everybody there comes out.
Thank you for that. Are there any further questions for Coordinator Arnold? Seeing none, thank you very much, Michael. Are there any further speakers tonight for director's reports? Seeing none, I will now turn it over to Speaker Pro Tem Saya to explain our college caucus time tonight.
Alrighty, thanks so much, Blake. We're going to break out into college caucus time again for about 20 minutes. I know some people may not have their caucus leader with them here tonight. That's okay. Group up, find somewhere in the union. If you do have your caucus leader, they'll explain. But the point of tonight is to start brainstorming ideas for outreach you might be able to do within your college over this semester or the next one. So it should be pretty casual. Just throw ideas back and forth. Let's say reconvene here at 7:50.
right, so yeah, spread out throughout the union. Make sure at least one person has a computer just in case someone's on Zoom, and let me know if you need that Zoom link to help them out with that. So we will reconvene at 7:50. Oh, okay. No, you're good. Yeah, I think there's one back there. If not, let me know. Okay. RJ, got one.
I want to talk to him. I'm sorry, what? I'm not on the Zoom. We're not talking.
I've got the number. Yeah.
You let me into the Zoom so you can get really
break them out.
Can you open like rooms up or something?
Thank you. It's fun. I think
What if you like that? I don't know anything about judicial.
Sorry, I totally forgot to tell you guys we can do this.
And if you do most things.
Let's create a setting.
Hey, Billy. I think I need to be able to.
And let's choose. Okay. It's only two.
So.
Hey, everyone on Zoom, if you can hear me, I just made a breakout room, or like 7 breakout rooms. So let's kind of coordinate a little bit how we want to do this. HHS, go room 1. Grad, if you want to go room 2. Arts and Sciences, if you want to go room 3.
Room 2. Yeah. I would also make sure that people know there are people on Zoom as well.
Yeah, I'll run around and go to them really quick. Okay, I think that should do it. I will run to Arts and Sciences.
I was gonna grab the Zoom link.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, this took a while.
Okay.
Marcus isn't here, so.
Okay, yeah. Go ahead and tell Evan.
Kyle, you better do Senator.
Okay. I think that's, because they're fine, RJ's fine.
Manira's not joining.
Kenny, you is here.
I think you get a scribe in.
This
Grace
second.
is here. Hi, Grace.
Yeah, can you?
Read the inside too.
Yes, yeah.
It's like a, this is like a energy drink that
I
tastes like
don't
a bomb.
really know what we're talking about. So maybe we need to have
It is,
like for something, I don't know for different habits. Oh, yeah.
Wonderful.
Aaron, will you let Evan in?
It's a bit of a sad feeling.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know where to look here. We can go over there.
So we did a little like
So you have to guess.
really comfortable with talking. So we talked about, do you remember that intern vote? So we activated that one.
That's what my wife did.
It failed by 1 vote. Not by, so phase 2 today, we have to go to practice.
She does so much stuff. And my first is too much.
So the interest proxy vote failed.
Obviously increase.
It only got 6 votes.
I don't.
I haven't done anything with that, to be honest.
Only time I would ever
So very
Nice, that sounds really good. And he's right, and I definitely it's easier to find your goals and everything. I appreciate all of you, so. We'll read every word. That's what we wanted. And then we're drafting the rest of the nominations for the speakers at KCC. So that'll be coming out in the near. Where is Chairman Cho? I just put it in. Well, obviously, just by the way. Might be like, okay, so I get it. We're scheduled right now. It's kind of weird. I'm definitely not going to be. All stage chapters. 3 works for me.
I'm the winner. Who is the family later?
And I think I talked to Nick.
We like your
I saw the calendar. Explain. Yeah, I think I have a basic idea of what we'll be talking about. There's a chance I might have to take a call tomorrow at 3, so it might shift 5 to 6. Yeah, I'm getting a call about at some point tomorrow, so yeah, we'll see what happens.
So whatever that is.
I'm just going through the things and attitude, but like really it's just the Cambodian from a primary and like hindsight's so funny. But like if you like anything
yeah, I agree. Okay, cool. So we will get that going. For sure. Thanks, Reed.
Yeah, and then like also the newsletter that's sent out.
Is this another, are we going to schedule a meeting
Yes,
with
obviously.
the director again and like present this, or are we just
And then I think like shocking in general for like running for HHS would be good. Because obviously like we sometimes shock, I didn't shock at all. But we like shocked for like past persistent races. But I think like, hey, just run for it. Like this thing that exists, that's also around. There's a ton of information on that. Great for me to watch, not only because people are just to know necessarily.
So Maggie was telling me, it's like in the school of objects, it's like a class that's just speakers.
I don't have to be an option. How busy we are, how we necessarily want to commit to this. But I'm just going to talk to them every day. Here's my exists. I mean, it would take maybe 5 minutes max, right, to just hop in.
I think education has as much attendance as community as far like the sororities that like everyone is.
and then it's not required for graduation.
My like one education class, all the people kind of come out based on what sorority they're in. And the guys that have the PhD. Like they're like 4 men in the class.
Committee does, they review essentially all of those before they go. What else are we taking them to make sure they're like knowledgeable and can go for
We will have a new team by next fall. So like really quickly getting on like, hey, we like work on this place, like this is a thing that we've struggled with in the past, and like this is an initiative we really feel is important. Just because like students should be represented by their students, and that hasn't been the case in the past. So whoever that is, I think we should definitely work closely with them. Definitely. It's a dumb thing.
Article 4, Section 5A, Subsection 3, which is not got to see. And that's because I was an OSCAP. That's like first experience with it. Now, that's only one committee. I think the more powerful one is the one that Donnie sits on, the one you experience with. Because that's really, it's a central thing. Now, I do have a question for you. Please call back on that. Has the GSC been permitted consent?
Yes, we just filled out an impact statement and I'm working on getting it approved. Actually, interestingly enough, they sent it to last year, and they didn't send it to you. I know. Blake was like, I'm so sorry, I saw this to you. I just noticed it was sent to Hannah and
Whether they like actually was passionate about it, or if they were just like, hey, this is a great resume builder, like let me join kind of thing, right? Because I really like PhD students.
yeah, so
That's kind of up their alley, specifically with the funding piece. So I'm not really sure how to market it to other students. Like the med students, obviously that's like pretty solid for them because it looks great on their resumes.
on Sunday.
But for like other students, like fashion design or whatever, I'm like, I don't know what like I can give you that's like, hey, this is really cool for like fashion design students.
That went through the exact last time. Most of the data is still applicable. You might want to kind of think off of that. I hope we say that GSC.
Actually, I think Blake actually emailed it to me. He forwarded it to me so that he already had it available, so I didn't have to go through all of that. I knew it would be something.
Right, like yeah. So there's other opportunities.
And then Tyson and Treasurer met with Megan and today to talk about what are this year's figures. After I had to give a 20-minute rundown for David.
Because there's like the five
funding, but
the five main categories are teacher education, business, human
did I say that?
teacher education is early childhood education and family and consumer sciences education. Business is PFB, hospitality management, bachelor studies. Human behavior is HDFS, general human ecology. Fashion studies, interior design, and then health sciences is like training, communication sciences, dietetics, integration skills.
It is, but quite honestly, I bet you it was a 5% cut anyway because last year we gave back $11,000.
So, just so ridiculously diverse. There's no
But also this year they've already
strategy.
seen like a 200% uptick from last year on people asking for allocations.
Right, if people hear about it, then like, I mean, there's got to be people who are interested in writing about it. I just heard about it. There's a lot of students who back in high school did debate forensics who are going to be like in HHS. That was the main reason why I did it, because I was like, I want to be able to supplement debate with something else, because I'm not going to do debate anymore. So, and here, rather than this being like a mockery Congress, we're like actually doing things, which is really cool. So
you can kind of like drive by and be like, oh, I'd sign up on that. That's cool.
I'm so sure that interests you about getting new sectors this term because the college or the college council is technically supposed to do that, but our college council doesn't exist. And it hasn't existed for a while now. And we've already like reached out to whoever we're supposed to reach out to. I'm pretty sure it's like our responsibility for about 2 weeks, and then it's their responsibility for about 2 weeks, and then once that's over, it's just like that's the only variable that we have to figure it out kind of thing. So something like that.
That's my question. Is there anything like in this scope here, or like specifically this very trade?
I just like don't know how organizations like even though PFP is pretty like not tight knit, but small and like individuals are approaching because it's not like COVID last year just like kind of screwed that, where like I didn't interact with a lot of people. And this year it's like I know some people who use in my classes, but I haven't really interacted with them. Like the graduating class last fall was super weird. And so I just like haven't experienced Yeah, exactly.
And then I saw you after.
Oh yeah. High school. 5 years ago. Like, I mean,
I will not.
I have changed so much in the past like 2 years. It is ridiculous. So, that's weird.
Everyone's right. Like, every time you hear stuff like this, the next thing, I will do this. It's how I said so many questions.
Right, yeah.
Seems like in October, mid-February. Always.
I said, if you do, Billy's the one to email. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Well, this seems pretty simple. Like, you let them know about it. Hey, whenever you have your meeting, like, talk to them. And, like, you know, take a minute, right? Like, give this opportunity, beneficial to students. And, like, I mean, that's the whole gist of HHS is, like, you know, people and it won't focus on things, it focus on people you like. So, yeah, that makes sense. And, right. Yeah.
It's not allowed. Was it?
I agree.
I'm gonna tell your boss about this.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, we're just gonna agree.
Did you say we're having that meeting with Nick tomorrow, or are you gonna set that up?
Yeah, we appreciate your expertise.
Learning more about the world.
Just make sure you
Yes, just started my PhD. Yeah, that is really good.
I've been here a while.
What am I gonna do with all these topics?
Hey, this is Kate.
Yeah.
And now you're coming for us in LCA and or GSC. Getting out of it.
And then.
That's exactly how I started last year. And I go to like,
This,
Well, there you go. Yeah, no, I mean, it's great.
Okay, we'll try to come back in. Just let me know and stuff. I think you said they were cheap pants, and I was like, yeah, I mean, that's also
All right, everyone, we'll be getting started here in just a couple of minutes as we let everyone come back in, but feel free to find your seats.
Or like there was something going on, right? Like it would have been just who gives a shit? Yeah. I don't even know what we're talking about. Yeah.
You and I, we fix style.
Oh, wait, you said Seinfeld? I love Seinfeld. We should start watching it.
Oh, yeah.
If I got my wall, I would pick Oh, yeah, the TSA.
Your office in
Yes, big wall.
Oh, hell yeah.
Every year. It is. I
think the only people who are that.
James gone by.
I go all the way to the bowling alley?
Love the flash. You know what I see that
I would tear them out some sharks. I did such a bad job. Nobody got it.
Progress is we can all be.
You are already?
Doing good. Dude, there was like no open period stuff, which was great. And I mean, because that took up like a long time last time, and then you get the core. We had like 2 director's reports, 3, I think. So good soup. I taught Jacob that today. He had no idea what it was.
You've done so much.
So unfortunate. They're wearing their uniforms. Hey Bryce, where's the rest of that? I thought they were behind you. Yeah. I guess not.
Jacob, go ahead.
I don't know. My hands on
Blake's gonna be sending to you. You're gonna come back.
I don't know what it is.
Wait, you have the power.
I know, I sent Jacob to my phone, and now everyone's like, yeah, I don't know where Jacob went. You never had some of this back. All right, we will go ahead and resume for the night. So hopefully College Caucus time was really productive for you. Thank you all for doing that. We will now move on to our legislative portion of the night. First up, we'll have Bill 15. Yeah, I meant to put this in approval of minor allocations. That was my fault. So, Senator Booz?
Yeah, I have an additional motion.
Ooh, okay.
Move to consider Bill 16 in whatever you do with allocation. Sorry, I missed that.
I think it's just allocation, right?
Yeah, it's not final action, it's whatever.
Yeah, so before that motion's made, I did mean to, that one specifically, I did mean to include in final action just because it started an introduction of legislation. So to consider it fully as we did, if that makes sense. So your motion can still stand if you want, but that's just the context behind
I get that. I still want to make a motion.
Okay, so it has been moved to consider Bills 15 and 16, I'll just put it in there for the simplicity, to consider those in approval of allocations. Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to consider those in approval of allocations. Are there any objections? Seeing none, those will now be considered in approval of allocations. So with that, is there a motion to approve the allocations? Chair Solomon.
Move to approve the allocations.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the allocations. Are there any objections? Seeing none, our allocations will stand approved. With that, we will move into Resolution 21-22-26.
Alrighty, have any changes been made?
No changes have been made.
Fantastic, then you have first right to debate.
All right, so basically, like I was saying last week, this piece of legislation really works to kind of simplify or, even out these two reserve accounts, specifically for the Educational Opportunity Fund Committee. Like I mentioned last week, in a time of declining enrollment, we don't know exactly how much these allocations will be, and because our EOF requests keep on going up and up, I think that it's really important to be able to continue some of these great services, and having more of a reserve account for that will be really helpful. So I urge you to vote yes on this so that ultimately the Educational Opportunity Fund Committee can have a little bit more money to work with in the future. It'll also even out these two pools of money while not hurting the Student-Centered Tuition Enhancements Committee in the same way. So I urge you to vote yes on this, and I will not take any questions.
Alrighty, thank you so much for that debate, Blake. Now we move on to speeches in the negation. Would anyone like to speak negative on this legislation? Okay, perfect. Are there any further speakers in the positive on this legislation? Are there any speakers at all?
This is not a speech. It is on line 43, it still says bill. Is there a friendly amendment to change that to resolution?
I have the wrong piece of legislation pulled up. That's why I couldn't find line 43.
It's noted. Andrew will take care of it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Alrighty then. If there are no further speakers, we'll now proceed into a hand vote since this is just a resolution. So everyone that would like to approve this resolution, please raise your placards now.
Proxies can raise 2.
All right, everyone put your placards and hands down. Anyone who does not wish to approve this legislation, please raise your placard and or your hands. Alrighty, fantastic. Resolution 26 is approved.
Awesome, thank you all for that. At this time, we will now move into introduction of the allocations for this week. So with that, we have scroll. So first, or both of our allocations today will go to the Sexuality and Gender Alliance. First, for Ally Cats, this will occur on November 18th, 2021. and it was requested for $600.75, recommended $350. And then the second bill, Bill 18, is for the same group. This is for the Red Ribbon Ball on December 3rd, 2021. This was requested for $1,550.75, recommended $750 for that. All right. Actually, can I get a motion to consider those? Senator Scharnhorst.
I move to consider the allocation.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to consider the allocations. Copy and paste my previous speech thing. Senator Scharnhorst.
I have corrections for both. Line 44 of 18 and 39 of 17 are needing capitalization for offices.
And we should probably go and change your templates.
Yeah.
Because that's obviously a template thing. And that just hasn't been changed from last year.
I got you.
Yes, I meant to email you both, by the way. I went through and updated every single template we have this past week. So if anyone wants any templates, the templates are all updated. Senator Bellamy.
So on line 18, 1980s should not have an apostrophe on Bill 18. Bill 18, line 18.
Thank you for that. Are there any further corrections on either of those two bills? All right, thank you very much. With that, we will now move into introduction of legislation. First up, we have Bill 19. Is there a motion to consider Bill 19? Senator Scharnhorst.
I move to consider, I move to renumber Bill 22 to 20, I think. Just so the privilege fee amendments are next to each other.
So the way that we number legislation is just alphabetically. So it goes within each section, like as you go down the agenda, and then it goes alphabetically, bills, then resolutions. So unfortunately, I'm not going to accept that motion just because that's our standard practice. I understand the intent, though. Go ahead.
Okay, I move to consider Bill 18. Second.
It has been moved and seconded to consider Bill 19. With that, will the author please come forward?
I'll read it if you'll move to something.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, I could read it, it would be fun, but if you want to go ahead. Okay, I move to allow the authors of Bill 19 and 22 to summarize.
Second. It has been moved and seconded to allow the authors of Bills 19 and 22 to summarize. Yes, are there any objections? Seeing none, you may summarize.
Hello, everyone. This is Bill 212219, amendments to the KSU SGA bylaws concerning the Privilege Fee Committee. Basically, we just found every instance in the bylaws where privilege fee was mentioned, and if the context was appropriate, and I think it was appropriate in every instance, we changed it to student services fee. I encourage all of you that are interested to please read this and compare it to the bylaws, because this is a massive document, so we very well may have missed something, and that would be really poopy if we did miss something. So go ahead and give it a look-see if you are so inclined, and let us know. I now stand for questions.
Are there any questions or corrections for the author? Senator Insero.
So this is something I've noticed in a couple of bills, but changing, for example, second Thursday of September to 9th regular meeting, is that just to kind of standardize it further, or why is that?
Yeah, that's more of a standardization thing, because those dates can be sometimes kind of transient in terms of when our term falls. Because, you know, like KWAR likes to switch the schedule up on us sometimes. So just like doing them in relation to when the term starts is the easiest.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions or corrections for Bill 19? Seeing none, thank you very much, Evan. We will now move on to Bill 20. Is there a motion to consider Bill 20? Chair Solomon.
I move to consider Bill 20.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to consider Bill 20. Will the author please come forward?
Bill 212220, amendments to the KSU SGA bylaws regarding election violation complaints. Author, me. Sponsors, GR Committee, Senate Ops, Michael Dowd, Cameron Coger, Blake Phillips.
Whereas the Kansas State University Student Governing Association should continue to review and streamline its elections processes. Whereas investigating suspected violations of the KSU SGA Elections Regulations Code, ERC, through a transparent and expedient process is crucial to keeping elections fair. Whereas currently the Elections Commissioner is required by the KSU SGA statutes to hold a hearing for each election violation complaint. Whereas the KSU SGA Elections Board is responsible for hearing complaints, and the individuals that comprise the board have myriad responsibilities. Whereas in recent election cycles, there has been a tendency for complaints to be unfounded in the ERC. Whereas the Elections Commissioner for the 2020-2021 KSU SGA election, Trey Coleman, noted in his post-election review the issue of obviously incorrect complaints taking up the time of the Elections Board unduly. Whereas the requirement of hearings for each complaint permits filing spurious complaints to misuse the valuable time of the Elections Board. Whereas removing the requirement of hearings as the first step for all election violation complaints streamlines the election process and absolves the Elections Board of undue burden. And whereas there exists an area of opportunity to create a new first step in the complaint process that reduces the time commitment required to determine the result of complaints. Be it enacted that Section 1, I did standardize based on language in the Constitution for when appointments should be made. Section 2, more of that, some formatting stuff. And then Section 3 is where the real meat is. Elections Board. The Elections Board shall be responsible for ensuring candidates for KSU SGA offices uphold the Elections Regulations Code. A, the Elections Board shall consist of 3 voting members, the Elections Commissioner, the Deputy Attorney General, and a member of the Elections Committee as elected by that committee. B, in the event of a suspected violation of the Elections Regulation Code, a written complaint must be submitted. Any member of the university community may file a complaint against a student. Complaint procedures may be referenced in the KSU SGA Statutes Elections Regulations Code section Complaints. C, upon receiving a complaint, the Elections Board shall determine its validity. If a complaint is found to be invalid, the Elections Board may unanimously decline to review it. Otherwise, the Elections Board shall conduct a hearing. D, hearing procedures may be referenced in the KSU SGA Statutes Elections Regulation Code sections Review of Suspected Violations and Determination of Violation. E, the KSU SGA Legislative Branch Advisor or their designee shall be present at all Elections Board hearings as a non-voting member. F, decisions of the Elections Board may be appealed as per the Elections Regulation Code. Appeals procedures may be referenced in the KSU SGA Statutes Elections Regulation Code section Appeals. Section 4 is sort of a renumbering to make sense. And Section 5, this legislation shall take effect upon passage by Student Senate and signature of the Student Body President. Stand for questions.
Are there any questions or corrections for the author? Senator Compton.
I apologize if I missed this. I noted in item C in section 3, in regards to a unanimous decline of the complaint, does I guess just the more on the unanimous part, does the entire board of voting members need to agree that the complaint is considered not worth the?
Yeah, so it's three members, which are outlined in section A.
Yes.
And the idea is the Elections Commissioner will take a look at all violations when they come in, and they have 24 hours to decide if it's worth looking at.
Right.
Now, if it's not, then they have to, in that 24-hour time period, reach out to the other members of the Elections Board and confirm. And as long as everyone agrees it's not worth the time of a hearing, then it won't be heard. But yes, it does have to be unanimous, and this was sort of checks and balances.
Right.
Idea. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Are there any further questions or corrections for the author? Seeing none, thank you very much for that, Gus. Is there a motion to consider Bill 21? Chair Solomon.
I move to consider Bill 21.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to consider Bill 21. Gus, you have the floor.
Bill 212221, amendments to the KSU SGA Elections Regulations Code regarding election violation complaints. Same authors and sponsors, and majority the same whereas clauses. I will read the last one on line 38. Whereas ambiguity in the restriction of campaigning via listserv or group messaging caused confusion during the 2021 KSU SGA election. Be it enacted that formatting thing in section 1, section 2, another formatting thing. Section 3, yeah, so this is where that last whereas clause comes in. So changing the line 77, senders must be presidents or coordinators. Change that to officers or advisors, because in that last election, there was a violation, went to student tribunal, where there was confusion over are officers other than the president coordinators of a student organization. I don't remember the ruling exactly, but I remember that that was a concern, and in the election review, post-election review, to fix next year. So that's what this does. It changes it to officers or advisors. So it changes it from just presidents and advisors to all officers and advisors. And then section 4, formatting stuff. Section 5, this is the important stuff. So for C, determination of validity, this is new. The Elections Commissioner shall have 24 hours after receipt of a complaint to determine if there is sufficient basis for a hearing. If the Elections Board agrees that a complaint is not founded in a legitimate violation of this code, they shall immediately make public the complaint with a decision declined to review. All actions of the determination of validity of complaints shall be documented. And then in D, just change that 48-hour number to 24. So it's the same period for violations to be processed or complaints to be processed, but now there's that additional step. So there's the same amount of time. There's just an additional step in there. And then E, I struck actually an A of that previous section. Sorry. So A under complaints. I said that no longer do complaints have to be filed within 24 hours after the alleged violation occurs. I'm open to any kind of suggestions on that. I'm not convinced that it's necessary, but I did just throw it in there to bring it up. So then in E, I struck filing complaints, the time frame for filing complaints, and added determination of validity. Okay, section 6, this just adds like appeal stuff. It says you can appeal determinations of validity. And then, yeah, section, oh, okay. So actually that's a numbering thing. So I have section 6 twice. Yeah. So the actual section 7 is post-election review. That just takes it from being a little bit unclear and kind of janky wording to being a little bit more clear about what responsibility the Elections Commissioner has post the election. And then section 7, usual stuff.
All right, are there any questions or corrections for the author? Senator Booz.
Yeah, there was a bit, section 4 actually sparked my interest because since the Elections Commissioner is also like a major filer of complaints, and they're also very involved in deciding like what complaints are valid as one of the 3 members of the board. How does this kind of tilt the balance regarding like outside complaints versus complaints inside of the elections apparatus that we have?
Right. So that is something that should probably be looked at when it's referenced. I think it's fine because the intention is really to. So the problem that the last election report noted was that people who are unfamiliar with the Elections Regulations Code are submitting complaints that don't have sort of any basis to them in terms of an actual legitimate violation. So I think it should be fine because the Elections Commissioner submitting inside complaints has a better idea knowing the Elections Regulations Code to be able to do that. So I think it's fine. It balances out.
Okay. Yeah.
Are there any further questions or corrections for the author? Seeing none, thank you, Gus. I will now seek a motion to consider Bill 22. Senator Booz.
Move to consider Bill 22. Second.
It has been moved and seconded to consider Bill 22. Will the author please come forward?
I able to summarize this, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, we
cool.
already did. Yeah.
So pretty much the same thing as they said about bylaws, except for the statutes. Now that I'm looking over it, I think line 15, it needs to change from bylaws to statutes instead. But basically, we just went through, made the same changes. Anywhere it said privilege fee, we changed the student service fee. Like they said before, if you guys want to double check, please do. Like I said, it's a really big document. It's hard to find them all, but we believe we did. Some of you who really look through it might wonder why after chapter 30 we don't do chapter 31 through 60 or so. That's because Blake told us that we'd have to get all the documents re-signed, and the university doesn't want to do that, so that's why none of them are on there. But these should have all of the changes that we were able to do and find in there. Yeah, are there any questions?
Yeah, really quick, just adding on that. Those are our student services fee contracts that'll have to get, like those contracts get reviewed on a yearly basis, so we can't go in and change those until that review has happened. So that's the rationale for not changing after 31, I believe. Senator Booz.
Yeah, I think there's a couple sections that are amending. Well, no, chapter 21 is not the Graduate Student Council Constitution, so never mind.
All right, are there any questions or corrections for the author? Seeing none, thank you, Mason. We will now move into Bill 23. Is there a motion to consider Bill 23? Senator Riffle.
I move to consider Bill 23.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to consider Bill 23. Will the author please come forward?
Sorry, everyone, those governing docs are thick. Okay. There we go. All right. Bill 21, 22, 23, authored by Max Harmon, Juan Pineda Gomez, Donnie Riffle, and Sarah Wallace, sponsored by the Privilege Fee Committee. Decrease of the Student Design Services Student Services Fee. Whereas Student Design Services SDS provides graphic design services to registered student organizations across campus to help with marketing and promotional materials for organizations and their activities. Whereas SDS currently budgets for 10 student employees working for approximately $9 per hour, 20 hours per week for 28 weeks per year. Whereas the average hours worked per student employee each week over the past 3 fiscal years was 12.36. Whereas these student employee salaries could be sufficiently funded at $30,240, down from the currently budgeted $43,780, when accounting for $12 per hour, resulting in a budget decrease of $3,000. That should be, okay, that should be 12 hours per week. My apologies.
Which line is that?
Line 20. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that should be 12 hours per week. Resulting in a budget decrease of $13,540. Whereas in the last 3 fiscal years, SDS had unused budget surpluses above $15,000. Whereas a decrease of 25% to their budget would prevent accumulation of these unutilized funds. Whereas there was a decline in the number of registered student organizations this year, and non-UPC organizations accounted for only 20% of total SDS projects previously. Whereas enrollment decline has not only continued but accelerated, leading to significant declines in fee collections approximating $2 million. Whereas the Kansas Board of Regents has communicated an intended moratorium on tuition and fee increases, and thus entity budget decreases are necessary in alleviating the ongoing shortfalls in the overall fee budget. Whereas there is no reason to predict that this decline will reverse in the near future. Whereas because of this decline, the committee recommends a hiring freeze and consolidation of responsibilities as vacancies open, in line with current university practices. Whereas ultimate priorities for the committee are increasing the range of students served by the fee and increasing the impact of each dollar adding to each student's campus experience. Whereas a total 30% budget decrease will realign SDS's budget with their current utilization and the overall state of the student services fee. And whereas the student services fee committee voted unanimously to recommend to Student Senate the following student services fee agreement. So, be it resolved, the contract and what this is a flat 30% decrease, lowering their budget to $41,928, which is a decrease of $13,540, and right now that is flat. So that is the introduction. I would appreciate answering any and all questions, and if I may, I might actually answer a question that I think needs to be asked. Can I explain some context?
Go for it.
Cool, wonderful. After writing this legislation and everything, I had a great meeting with Audrey, the Director of Student Design Services, earlier this week. And so as the process goes, I got to intake her input and her reaction and kind of stance on all of this. And obviously, this is no surprise to you all. This is a extremely, extremely significant cut, and the committee does not take that lightly. And on Audrey's behalf, I'll be bringing up a amendment to the committee when this is referred to us this Monday to consider a 10% year-over-year stepped decline in order to get to the same ending point on this budget allocation, but doing so in a way that makes that a little bit easier of a transition. That is definitely something the committee considered during our discussion, and Audrey's concerns there is especially with the double whammy of the callbacks this year alongside of this budget decrease, asking if the committee might consider that 10% decrease. So I'll be kind of sharing those thoughts with the committee there. And then she also updated some of the numbers with me on what the average hours worked per student employee was. That 12.36 is technically accurate. They had less weeks worked like overall per semester. So instead of, we were factoring in for an 8 in fiscal year 22, it was actually closer to an 11. So that average of 12.36 is a little bit higher, but not too much, but I'll be updating that number when we kind of get that referred to us. So.
All right. Are there any questions or corrections for the author, Senator Booz?
Yeah, that proposed 10% per year decrease would be, like, the second year decrease would be a dollar amount equivalent to 10% of the first year's money, not 10% compounding, right?
Right.
Because a 10% year-over-year compounding decrease would actually get you below 30.
Right. It would be, yeah. So the goal would be to still have the same ending point, but getting there in a distributed way. Yeah.
Senator Porter.
I don't know if you know the answer to this or not, but since they have such a big surplus, instead of like reabsorbing the surplus, why don't we ask them to pay their employees more?
Excellent question. Couple of scenarios. Unfortunately, kind of where things are at, that surplus is either going to be used to absorb the year-over-year decrease, or that surplus is going to be called back with the FY22 insufficient funds. And so, unfortunately, like the place where we're at, they're probably not at a place where they're able to increase the pay of their employees. They're more than likely at a place, in fact, not more than likely, they are at a place where year over year they will decrease the number of positions that they are funding. So the goal of this, and with the 10% decrease year over year, is to try and make that so that they don't have to terminate students midway in the year like we are right now, trying to, as students graduate, not fill those vacancies and kind of consolidate things. So that is a very tough position to be in, but certainly kind of, yeah. The unfortunate answer to your question is they probably don't have the margins to do that.
Are there any further questions for the author? Seeing none, I don't know if I can technically do this, but I kind of have a friendly amendment.
Yeah, what you got?
So on the contract, just changing Senate to KSU SGA.
Oh, cool. Cool. Yep.
Awesome. Cool. Didn't mean to repeat that. Senator Booz.
Yeah, and this looks like it's been edited since Senate Ops took a look at it, but when Senate Ops took a look at it, there were inconsistencies in the contract between privilege, like there are instances of privilege fee left in there, there were instances of places where it had been changed already, And like technically the name of the committee currently is the Privilege Fee Committee, but the name of the fee is the Student Services Fee. And so like, if I had to state a preference, that's the preference I would use until we pass the bills that are in front of this one. But it being all student services fee is also acceptable.
Yeah, so just for context with that, I talked with Aaron about that, and I determined while like putting the agenda together that so our goal right now is to get all of these updated to say student services fee, and if we were to pass it like this, it would be another 3 years, and this one would be just alone by itself where it wouldn't be updated. So that was the rationale that all of those got changed. Additionally, while it wouldn't be certified, the legislation would be passed to approve these, assuming that it passes, would be passed by then. Senator Booz, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of the committee, or the people on the committee who were more interested in technical correctness, was to make a friendly amendment on the floor after, when it came up for debate, to change everything from privilege fee to student services.
Gotcha. Thank you very much for that. Are there any further questions or corrections? Seeing none, thank you very much, Max. With that, we will move to Resolution 29. Is there a motion to consider Resolution 29? Senator Porter.
I move to consider Resolution 29.
It has been moved and seconded to consider Resolution 29. Will the author please come forward?
Resolution 21, 22, 29. Recommendations to Kansas State University regarding sexual violence. Authors: Maggie Billiman, Michael Dowd, Rachel Gromez, Sarah Haggard, Cameron Koger, Vedant Kulkarni, Andrew Navarro, Ethan Pilchard, myself, and Arya Sinha. Sponsors: Madeira Lister, Peyton Lynn, Blake Phillips, and Marta Richenberg. Whereas on Tuesday, October the 5th, 2021, approximately 100 Kansas State University students met on Anderson Lawn to protest sexual violence at the university. Whereas, following the initial meeting on Anderson Lawn, students marched to the president's residence to voice concerns. Whereas, University President Richard B. Myers addressed protesters and requested a list of desired concrete action items from students. Whereas, following the march, members of the KSU Student Governing Association collaborated with student protesters to create a preliminary list of action items and distributed it to President Myers and other university administrators. Whereas KSU administration officials have pledged their support in helping students mitigate the issue of sexual violence at the university. Whereas sexual assault prevention, awareness, and response should be prioritized by KSU administration, and whereas KSU SGA has, through research and conversation with survivors and allies, created and refined this official list of recommendations to the university. Be it resolved that, Section 1, the Kansas State University Student Governing Association makes the following recommendations to the respective parties. A, that the Office of Student Life, as well as the Office of the Chief Financial Officer and Budget Office, provide a timeline regarding funding and institutionalizing the position of Sexual and Relationship Violence Prevention Specialist for fiscal year 2023. B, that the Office of Institutional Equity, Lafayette Health Center, and the Center for Advocacy Response and Education Office, CARE, develop a mandatory sexual and relationship violence education module for all incoming students, in addition to the Alcohol and Sexual Assault Prevention ASAP training to reduce the association between alcohol and sexual violence. C, that the Student Organization Policy Review Committee increases transparency in their processes through updates in popular media on a monthly basis, and includes representatives from a variety of student organizations, particularly those in fraternity and sorority life and other independent student organizations, in order to create a cohesive recommendation regarding student organization policy that makes an effort to mitigate sexual violence. D, that the OIE educates students regarding the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA, and other protective policies, and provides adequate and timely information regarding the outcome of their investigation with the survivor. E, that the OIE and the CARE Office collaborate with KSU SGA to create an informational campaign that promotes and educates students about available resources through all avenues, including but not limited to the following. 1, placing informational flyers on the inside of all on-campus bathroom stalls. 2, encouraging instructors to promote resources at least once per semester. 3, modifying the mandatory Kansas State syllabus statements to better reflect resources available to survivors. 4, utilizing social media to exhibit and explain the process of reporting an instance of sexual relationship violence. And 5, implementing a permanent link to resources in the sidebar of the K-State Today publication. Section F, that the Division of Communications and Marketing explore the idea of promoting administrator positions and responsibilities in order that students be made aware of the appropriate channels to express grievances. G, that administrators, instructors, the CARE Office, OIE, and KSU-SGA prioritize the promotion of the Campus Climate Survey and Sexual Assault Climate Survey in order to amplify the voices of survivors of violence or discrimination. H, that the Division of Informational Technology ensure that the Campus Climate Survey and Sexual Assault Climate Survey are sent with official KSU branding and that students be notified in the main inbox of their KSU email. I, that the Sexual Assault Prevention and Awareness Director within KSU-SGA create a task force which involves KSU-SGA, Wildcats Against Sexual Violence, and students at large in order to create a coherent report regarding sexual violence to administrators in future terms. J, that Housing and Dining Services refine policy regarding preventing those with a criminal record related to sexual violence from living in on-campus housing. K, that President Myers further his relationship with the CARE Office and emphasize the importance of prevention, awareness, and response efforts to the incoming university president. Section 2, KSU-SGA stands with the survivors of sexual or relationship violence, condemns the actions of perpetrators, and renews its commitment to efforts of sexual assault prevention, awareness, education, and response. Section 3, upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the student body president, a copy of this resolution shall be sent to Chief Financial Officer Ethan Erickson, Director of the Office of Institutional Equity Dr. Stephanie Lott, Director of Lafine Health Center Jim Parker, Sexual and Relationship Violence Prevention Specialist Jessica Hano, Director of the CARE Office Clara Valdez-Quintz, Director of the Center for Student Involvement Kelly Ferris, Director of Fraternity and Sorority Life Jordan Coker, Vice President for the Division of Communications and Marketing Jeffrey Morris, Chief Information Officer Gary Pratt, Faculty Senate President Laurel Luttrell, Director of Housing and Dining Services and Associate Vice President for Student Life Dr. Derek Jackson, Chief of Staff and Director of Community Relations Linda Cook, Vice President for Student Life and Dean of Students Dr. Thomas Lane, and University President Richard B. Myers.
Are there any questions or corrections for the author? Chair Salmon.
Would it be possible to get on there as a sponsor, I believe? Is that possible?
Yes. Are there any other sponsors? Okay. Blake, it's all of you now.
Okay.
you all just send me an email?
1 second. We have something prepared for this, actually. Shout out Senator Porter for an awesome suggestion. After this meeting, I'm going to send out an email with a link. It's a little like Google form that basically we will record all the responses of people who want to be added as sponsors to this. So shout out to Evan for that awesome idea. Look for that shortly after the meeting. Are there any further questions or corrections for the author? Senator Porter.
This is something that I just genuinely don't know. Is the director of Lafine an MD? Is he a doctor? Dr. Parker? No, okay. I didn't know.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. I also had the same question. Are there any other questions for the author? Advisor Ferris.
Jordan Coker is no longer the director of Fraternity and Sorority Life at K-State. Who is it?
There isn't one.
There isn't one.
There is not currently one, and there won't be one soon, most likely.
So I wonder if it would be better suited to send it to council president or Panhellenic council and interfraternity council president. So like how does it be?
Not currently.
Gus, is that cool with you?
Gotcha. We will make that change. Are there any further questions for the author? Seeing none, thank you very much for that, Gus. With that, we have now exhausted our legislative agenda for the night, and we will move into second open period. Are there any second open period speakers? Senator Scharnhorst.
All right, everybody. So last week, amidst kind of high emotions and tensions, I got up here and I spoke about the responsibilities that come with being an SGA member. I spoke passionately, maybe, but my reflection on it since has suggested that I spoke rudely and insultingly while declaiming that I was not being those things. I wanted to formally apologize for calling the motives of SGA members into question. And though I still believe in the sentiment that SGA should have as many active members as possible, the way I declared that sentiment was unproductive, especially because it contributes to a culture of shame in SGA, causing the opposite of my intended effect. It creates an artificial divide between us. I understand wanting to go home when a Senate meeting runs long. I understand having other obligations which are sometimes more important than SGA. And I understand that all of this gets in the way of contributing actively. But I do want to see more active members, and shaming you is not the way to go about it. I want to be encouraging and help SGA form a more cohesive unit instead of falling prey to the polarization in our culture. I think that we can do better together. So if you have any ideas or issues in mind and you don't know how to help, I want to be available as a resource. Please come talk to me before or after any Senate meeting or via email. And once again, I'm sorry for attacking you guys instead of the problem.
All right. Thank you very much, Gus. Are there any further speakers tonight for second open period? Seeing none, Senate shout-out time.
Alrighty. For starters, shout out to Marta. We don't have a whole lot of shout outs kicking around. It's been a pretty smooth evening, but I think this shows she writes easily 60 to 90% of what I read out every Thursday evening. But anyway, let's get into the list. Shout out to the Tuition and Fees Strategies Committee for their hard work that is already occurring and the work that is yet to come. Shout out to everyone for being a proxy and those who remembered to get proxies. This one is in all caps. Evan, those pants. Props to Blake's outfit. Props to Juan for becoming the engineering caucus leader. Senate was dressing tonight. Way to go, everyone. In awe of Senator Porter's snazzy trousers. Huge shout out to all of those who worked on the recommendations to K-State regarding sexual violence. Shout out to Ali DeMott. She is a rock star. Shout out to Gus for being awesome. Shout out to Gus for putting in the work this week. Shout out to Jessica Binkley, Caleb Stout, Josh Diaz de Leon, and Stasia Mendoza, SGA members, current and former, for advancing to the next round of K-State ambassador selections. Shout out to the interns that stayed for the entire Senate. Shout out to Gus, you're the GOAT. Haley McPhee, best skater in SGA. And finally, shout out to Senator Prester for reading that legislation tonight.
Awesome. Thank you all very much for that. We should hear the chorus go off here in just a minute. I did just send out the email for the form. I'm surprised no one has their volume on. Interesting. I expected more. With that, we'll move into reference of legislation for the night. Bills 17 and 18 will go to the On-Campus Allocations Committee. Bills 19 through 22 will go to the Senate Operations Committee. Bill 23 will go to the Student Services Fee Committee. And then Resolution 29 will go to the Senate Executive Committee. So if you're interested in any of those pieces of legislation, please try to attend those committees or talk to a member of those committees. With that, I will turn it over to you, Nick.
Thanks so much, Blake. We'll run right through this. Bain.
I'm paying attention. Here.
Bellamy.
Here.
Binkley.
Here.
Booz.
Here.
Brummett. Kahlo. Carr.
Here.
Chappas. Compton.
Here.
Croslow.
Here.
Cunningham. DeMott.
Here.
Doc.
Here.
Ansero.
Here.
Esslinger.
Here.
Fields.
Here.
Gann.
Here.
Glasscock.
Here.
Jambunathan.
Here.
Kramer.
Here.
Lister. Long.
Yep.
Mayer.
Here.
McPhee.
Here.
Middaugh.
Here.
Nelson.
Here.
Pineda Gomez. Porter.
Here.
Prester.
Present.
Riffle.
Here.
Rook. Salmon.
Here.
Scharnhorst.
Here.
Splekel.
Here.
Stout.
Here.
Thomas.
Here.
Volgamore.
Here.
Wallace. Warren, Willis Jackson, and Willis Reese. Alrighty, thanks so much, everyone.
All right, with that, I will now seek a motion for adjournment. Senator Compton.
I move to adjourn until Thursday, October 21st, 7 p.m. Walk out neighbors.
It has been moved and seconded to adjourn. Are there any objections? Seeing none, we will stand adjourned. Have a good night, everyone. Travel home safe, and as always, go Cats. Farmageddon.
Well, he's
I was definitely considering it. Sorry, I was talking to Michael. Yes, yeah. We just
So like no specific format.
Yeah, right. I was just sitting there. Everyone's kind of looking around.
Like this is a mess.
It's all good. I appreciate it.
And then I'll have to take my tomorrow and figure it out the next day. Thank you for figuring that out. I appreciate it.
Yep.